My name is Derek Meinecke, and I have had the great fortune to be the benchmate and, more importantly, friend to Jamie for the past 8 years at the 44th District Court, where he has served with distinction. He was reelected November 8th and sworn in last week to serve his third term on the bench. You see, Jamie had received an overwhelming mandate from the people of the cities of Berkeley and Royal Oak calling him to serve again. It is difficult to limit oneself when describing a person of Jamie's quality. What attribute do you highlight? His compassion and empathy, his selflessness, his integrity? I have always been struck by his ability to connect with people. Do we start there? Because we would be here for days. His kindness, I will start there. However, when speaking of Jamie, the word kindness, as wonderful as that word is, seems too limiting and confining when describing the depth, the richness, and fullness of his kind nature. I struggled with how to adequately describe it, but this is the best I could muster. Imagine two people in a room, and Jamie is one of them. That other person can come from any walk of life, any background, any faith, any gender, any race, frankly, any person in this room, from a senator to a defendant, whoever. It wouldn't matter to Jamie. Two truths would exist in that situation. Jamie would believe that the other person was the most important person in the room, and he would treat that person in a way that would convince them that they were the most important person in the room. To highlight two other traits, his sense of humor and his humility, I'd like to share a couple stories. First, his sense of humor. When Jamie moved over to the 44th District Court in 2015, we were facing several challenges, and he was the perfect ointment to heal our wounds. His easy nature endeared himself to our staff and our community. For me, the opportunity was there to serve with a great person for decades to come. But first, I needed to see if he could take a joke. As many of you know, Jamie loved Indiana basketball, and my alma mater, Northwestern, hence the purple, has historically been terrible at basketball. However, on February 25th, 2015, my Wildcats upset the mighty Hoosiers. I thought it would be funny if I would deliver purple flowers over to the Berkeley court. We were still operating as two buildings at that point. I brought my kids with me, and as we were walking in, my son said, "Do you think this is a good idea?" And I said, "Don't worry, let's see." Well, I dropped them off, and of course, Jamie was magnanimous in defeat and congratulated me. But as you can imagine, that was not the end of it. Shortly after we fully merged in May, I walked into my office and saw this picture frame on my desk, all right? It's titled NCAA Tournament History. And it lists out Indiana Hoosiers, tournament appearances 38, Northwestern none. Final Fours 8, again, Northwestern none. Final Fours, and then he lists the win-loss record between Indiana and Northwestern, 64-32. It was in that moment that I realized that I was never to be the funniest judge at the 44th District Court, but more importantly, I had found a kindred spirit, someone that we could build something incredible at the 44th District Court. The second story I must share involves his humility. From time to time, as judges, we get calls in the middle of the night for search warrants. The police will call and then ask the judge to review some documents. Nowadays, the search warrants can just be emailed to us at home, but when we first started together, Royal Oak PD would call and then bring the search warrant over to our house. Now, just to set the stage a little bit, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I hear a loud banging at the door. Actually, I don't hear it right away. It's my wife, Mandy. My wife, Mandy, says, "Are you going to get that, or do I have to?" And so I'm staggering awake, and I mean, nobody should be pounding at my door at 3 in the morning. So I fumble around, and there just happened to be a broken flagpole in my room. Don't ask me why. I grab it, and I head to the door as if that was going to protect me. And I open the door, and there's a police officer there, and he says, "You fell back asleep, didn't you, Judge?" And I was mortified, because one thing happens when the police call. I mean, I do jumping jacks, I drink water, I do whatever I can, because the last thing you want is someone pounding at the door. So we have to sit there for a little bit because the police officer had forgotten a couple of the documents of the search warrant. And so it takes about 45 minutes. And then he leaves. And I'm just sort of racking my brain thinking, how is that possible that I missed that call? And I look through my cell phone log, no missed calls. I look through my house line, no missed calls. And so then I call the officer up and I said, what phone number did you call? And he reads me back Jamie's number. Now at that moment, I call Jamie, who's been sitting in the living room in his living room looking out the front window. And I said, they're not coming, man. They're not coming. And then I was slightly agitated, and Jamie just starts laughing. And I'm trying to figure out, what's so funny? And he goes, well, if you think about it, 2 judges, one with a broken flagpole in his boxers, and the other one sitting on a couch waiting like a puppy for his family to come home. And he said, what's not funny about that? And we just laughed like 2 slap-happy teenagers at 3 o'clock in the morning until I heard, and finally they did call Stacy. Finally I heard in the background Stacy come down the stairs, they're not coming. Now, did Jamie get angry about that? Did he call the police to complain? No, he used that situation because of his humility, because he was so humble. He turned that into a funny story that we laughed about, and I will continue to laugh about for years to come. See, he understood what service meant. Others first, always. And he was the same guy with a robe as he was before. Make no mistake, he loved being a judge, but he loved it for the opportunity to help, to solve problems, to heal. It's at this point, and Brooke and Maya, we talked the other night about, I lost my dad at a young age, and whether I still hear my dad's voice. Well, I heard your dad's voice last night when I was writing this, because I'm going on and on about him, and he says, stop. Thank them. And I said, who? I literally said it out loud. Who? Thank them all. Please thank my family and friends for me. So to the many lifelong friends and family, Jamie always appreciated you. All of you enhanced his life with your laughter and company. To the employees at the court, he went from a small family to a large family and yet found time to have individual relationships with all of you. He loved being our judge. To the people who appeared before him, particularly the members of his sobriety court, he was always so grateful for having played a small role in your success. But he wanted me to spend a little time on his family. Thank you to Stacy's family, the Reddishes, Joan, Stephen, and Michael. Jamie would often talk about how all the things you did for him and Stacy and the girls. And I had the opportunity to see your commitment in action. You are simply wonderful. Robert, thank you for being willing to move mountains for your brother. On September 16th, when Stacy was talking about, he took a significant turn for the worse, and it appeared we would lose him. And I watched in awe in the storm and chaos all around. Robert calmly took over, harnessing all of his skill and will to ensure that his brother and his family were given the best treatment. And that's just but one example. It was a sight to see. Jody, thank you for your stubborn and fierce determination to check every option and uncover every stone. Whenever I saw you in action, I would think of a bruised and battered brother on the ground with cancer, the relentless enemy ever advancing, and you, the little sister, standing in the path in defense of your brother, saying, not today. Thank you to Molly, who gave all of herself in this idea that her son should never be alone in this journey. Even to the sacrifice of her own sleep and well-being, your tank has been emptied, and because you did that, your son never knew a day without his mother's love. And thank you to Howard, who never stopped believing. Never, not even at the end, at the hope of a recovery for Jamie. Because after all, nobody beat the odds like Jamie. You understood that. Your hope and your constant support of your granddaughters was so needed. This will be difficult for me, Stacy, because I watched my mother walk the same path that you have walked. My admiration for you knows no bounds. I refuse to let cancer define Jamie's experience. The most defining moment in his life was not May 12, 2019, the day of his diagnosis. The most important day in his life was when he met you. You gave him love and a wonderful marriage. You gave him children and a family. All of his greatest accomplishments in life happened after he met you. All that cancer did was show that when you gave your life to Jamie, when you made a vow to love him unconditionally, come what may, you meant it with every fiber of your being. How else could someone carry on the way that you have, with everything seeming falling apart around you, and yet you still managed to hold it all together? There's only one answer: love. You have been an amazing wife to Jamie. You loved him, and he loved you right back. And your words today were magnificent. Well, why am I surprised? You've been magnificent all along. To his girls, you were the whole world to your dad. And there will be a time, and this is speaking from just my own personal experience, there will be a time when you realize that although he is not physically here, your dad has never left you and will never leave you. But it takes time to feel that reality. In the meantime, you'll be angry. That's okay. You'll be sad. That's okay. You will ask why over and over and over again, and that's okay. What I found difficult when I was in your spot were all the unanswered questions and all the conversations that I wanted to have with my dad. But here's one glimmer of hope that I can offer you. Your dad impacted, look around, impacted so many lives that the questions that you have now and into the future, there is someone here who has that answer. What was my dad like in high school? What was my dad like to work with? What was the craziest thing my dad did in college? Although you might have to wait for that answer, all right? We stand with you, ready to fill in the gaps and help you gain a full picture of your dad until the day you realize this truth. He is part of you. You are your father's daughters. And not time, not cancer, nothing can change that. When you look in the mirror, he is there. He cannot be separated from you. When someone asks you, are you related to Judge Jamie Wittenberg? Your answer isn't, he was my father, but I am his daughter. There is no past tense. You are your father's daughters now and forever. Because in the end, all of us will need to figure out a way to move forward. And when that happens, we move forward not without Jamie, but because of him.